This season of Truly Independent is supported by the Help Them See Foundation. Help Them See is a nonprofit dedicated to supporting feature films that inspire faith, hope, and connection. By partnering with filmmakers, the Help Them See Foundation brings meaningful stories to life and shares them with audiences worldwide, making a lasting cultural impact through the power of cinema. Learn more and discover how you can be part of the movement by visiting helpthemseefoundation.org. Welcome to Season 3 of Truly Independent. I'm Garrett Batty alongside my co-host Darren Smith. Each week, we'll go in-depth with guests, industry experts, and we'll even share our own experiences, all with the goal of demystifying the independent film process. This season, it's all about the script, from the first spark of an idea to a polished final draft, breaking it down for scheduling, budgeting, and ultimately shooting. We'll walk through every step it takes to get from page to production. Welcome to Truly Independent.
Garrett, how are you, man?
Hey, Darren, nice to see you. I'm doing all right. How are you?
Oh, I'm better because I'm at home. If you're watching this on the YouTubes, like I'm actually at my home office, which makes me feel so much better than being in a different hotel for the
Yeah, I
third
was
or
wondering. I
fourth
was wondering what your background was going to be today, where the bed was going to be, or the light. But no, I recognize that office.
Yeah. Well, and funnily enough, I'm going to New York next week. We'll probably record before I leave, but like right after that, I'm heading to the airport and then I'll be there for a few days and then I'll be home. So still have one or two more hotels in my future, but it's nice to
I
be home.
Good. Well, welcome home. Hopefully, you're doing well and your family's doing well. I'm excited to get into where you've been and kind of catching up. You've been to some very cool festivals or events, and it sounds like a lot of those were set up by you. So I'm
Yes.
so excited to hear about that. And I'll update you too on what I've been working on as far as writing and distributing.
Yeah, I think we're due for a little catch up, and it will set up nicely our conversation topic for today, which is supply and demand imbalance. And those are obscure words intentionally. So we'll get
Okay.
into
All
it.
right.
I do want to shout out one of our listeners, though, Ron Waterman, this morning posted on LinkedIn that he listened to our podcast, our interview with Matt Whitaker, and went and saw Truth and Treason. So we've attributed at least $20 worth of ticket sales to that movie, which I'm very happy about.
Not only that, but it sounds like he went and signed up for the guild after seeing that movie.
Yeah, it's pretty
Uh,
amazing.
which is pretty amazing. I mean, what a great film and a tribute to Matt and his hard work. And thanks, Ron, for the shout out. That's so great.
Yeah, but we've had a few interviews the last few weeks, so it's worth telling each other what we've been up to because we haven't been able to do that with our podcast over the last month or so. Um, so, as many maybe know, because we did a couple of these interviews over the last few weeks where I was in hotels. The last 12, 13 days, I was kind of doing the road show. I went to 3 different film festivals, and I can give you one takeaway from going to 3 film festivals. That's maybe not our main topic today, but a little aside. But I went to the AFI, or in order, I went to the Newport Beach Film Festival, the AFI Fest in LA, and then flew to the Austin Film Fest and was there for about 5 days. And the intent was not to go and be a guest at the festivals. The intent was to meet investors in those different cities. And it went really well. Had a lot of lunch meetings, had a lot of one on one meetings, had a lot of follow up calls. And so the one little sidebar takeaway is that you don't actually need a festival as an excuse to go to these cities and talk to people and set up lunches. Like I'm probably going to start doing a monthly or every other month minimum trip to LA to take meetings and connect with people in person and host a lunch because they were really effective and really impactful. And it's such a better way to invite somebody, connect with somebody, get to know somebody rather than a cold reach out of, hey, can I pitch you my film fund? It's like, hey, come
Mm.
to lunch with a bunch of other film investors and executives, and we're going to talk about the future of indie film. That's very exciting. And so it worked really well. I probably met 60 people in person over 10, whatever that is, 12 days. And really great. And also really great to be home. So, how about you? What have you been up to the last 2, 3 weeks?
Well, I have so much to ask you and to talk about because that sounds
We
amazing,
could
and
do both.
I certainly enjoyed your write up on Craftsman Films about setting up those lunches. And
Yeah.
it seemed like I mean, there's a great photo of you with the right amount of people there, and I enjoyed your breakdown of that, and I look forward to putting that in. It reminds me I'm having lunch today, so we should with Jeremy Prusso. So I need to
Nice.
um, we need to be on focus. We can't let this be another 2-hour episode. Uh, um, I have been in the throes of working with distribution, and then writing some an upcoming teaser that we're about to shoot, like a pitch teaser. Um, I realized that, Darren, we've made, these two movies. You and I made two movies together. I've got six others, and with there being so many different now distributors and channels and ways to get it out there, I just feel like I spent some time doing some administration and saying, look, I need to really track what distributor has what film and what rights they have, and really maximize each film. We put so much effort into these films, and so to sign it off to one distributor and hope that that all works out is irresponsible. That's just not a model anymore.
Yeah.
So I'm excited about this new tracker that I've been developing, and it does feel like something that we can duplicate and would be very, very helpful for up and coming filmmakers, for any filmmaker.
That's so awesome. I have this top of mind because it came up so often. About my pitch is really that the current and historical model for indie film is broken, and I've built a
Yeah,
new model, and that's what we're working towards. And part of that description of the indie film model that's broken is the idea that, um, and this doesn't apply to you because you're a writer, director, producer, and executive producer, and you handle all of this as you just explained. But a lot of times, what we see is a director who hustles up some money to go make a movie, gets to make their movie, and then they're done and they go to the next movie. And anything after that is the producer's job or the distributor's job or someone else's job because they did what they're supposed to do, which is direct a movie. But if they were the producer who raised the money and put the project together and made a promise to the investors, they're responsible until they hire someone else or a producer or partner with a distributor to take that on. And so the idea of the release of the film being the finish line is not accurate. That's the starting line for your distribution, and it's going to be forever at that point. You've got this asset that needs to be treated like one for as long as possible. And that's why companies exist to own and manage libraries of IP so that they can be massively profitable. If you just treat it like oh, I did that once and I'm done and have never thought about it again, it doesn't have the same effect.
I think that there's so much truth to that, and there's so much life in film, in film that is under. I guess there's so much value, I guess, that is underutilized. Just
Mhm.
this morning, I mean, I got up at 5 o'clock this morning and uploaded clips of a film I made 13 years ago to a new distributor that is going to put it to their audience. And I cannot wait because it will generate income from work I did 13 years ago. And I'll be able to, again, split that with the investors. And the film is recouped multiple times. And yet still people are receiving, I got a nice text from an actor who was in the film for one day, and he responded. He said, "Hey, I just received another check from this work." So so nice.
Yeah.
So
Don't you love
you
it?
cannot skirt on the value of the work that you're doing to make these movies.
Yeah. When it speaks to your understanding and my understanding and our understanding of ownership is so important, right? If
Yeah,
someone has all the rights to your movie for 15 years because you signed them away, like you're at their mercy and whether or not they choose to exploit it or to engage with it and put it out there. And that's not great. So you've been an example to me as far as the value of owning everything that you do and not just getting someone to let you direct a movie and write a movie and collect a paycheck, but like you're making movies through your company and you own them for the life of them. It's really smart.
let's get into your road trip. That's where the smart is.
All right. Well, what questions do you have? We could start there. And then I really want to get into our topic, which is just kind of a thing that I've been thinking a lot about and talking a lot about. So maybe that's the setup and we just go right into it.
Yeah, yeah, no, that's fine, and I do have questions, but I know you want to be very very sensitive to the details of the project that you're pitching and road tripping on. So I want to be careful not to tread on that. But I feel like the principles that you're doing out there on the road are incredibly helpful, and honestly, they make me want to duplicate that for a couple of projects I'm working on.
Yeah.
So
I
what?
think you
Yeah,
should.
tell us, kind of give us an overview of that and share that and give us a
Yes.
breakdown.
And I'm happy to talk about the project in vague terms. I'm just, like you and I are both very cautious of putting the cart before the horse and starting to promote projects that the money isn't in the bank account yet. And so I'm still waiting for that to happen. It's on its way. And so until that point, and people that are paying attention probably know what we're talking about. But I just don't want to have any very, very public announcements or PR releases. Anyway,
If you
this
want to know more what it is, we can't say, but just go to Darren's LinkedIn and you'll
Yeah,
find out
you'll
what it
see.
is.
The other aspect of that too, though, is the trip was set up before I was attached or this project came into my orbit. And so I can definitely talk about this trip in the sense of why I did it as a person raising a film fund instead of a person trying to raise money for a single project, because that's not what I'm doing. So let's get into that. About a month and a half, 2 months ago, I had the money to put together a trip, and I was like, look, I need to hit it hard. The summer was really rough as far as my time and being able to devote it to this fund. My wife also works from home, has a more rigid work schedule than I do. And so I became the de facto, driver and hanger outer and all the things, the cleaner and the cooker and all the things, parent wise. And so it felt like even being able to string 2 consecutive hours together to work on the fund was very hard to do. So once the kids went back to school mid-August, that was kind of the impetus of, okay, I got to do something. I got to sprint and compress a whole bunch of time into like 2 weeks because I gotta go. And so I just went into that sort of mode, like sprint mode. And the idea was, well, let me look at what festivals are around, because that's where people who are interested in indie film gather. So that's maybe principle number one, or takeaway number one, is like, well, where are they at? Sidebar. So many people talk to me about, well, I don't even know where to find producers, investors, money, etc. It's like, well, go to a film festival. They're all there. The executive producers are there watching the premieres of their movies, and producers are there, and directors are there. Like, go to a festival, go to a market, go to a meetup. Like, anyway, back to the main story. So I talked to our friend John, who was on the podcast season 1 or season 2, John Fitzgerald, who's really integrated in the festival world. He was a co-founder of the Slam Dance Festival and just knows a lot of people. So he was the one who recommended, oh, I would do Newport Beach, AFI, and then I tacked on Austin because I've always wanted to go to the Austin Film Fest. Because back when I started writing scripts in like 2009, I was like, ooh, Austin Film Fest would be a cool place to go. Finally got to go. Totally worth it. You should go. So I put the dates in my calendar. I booked the hotels and the flights. And then I started reaching out to people using LinkedIn to find and identify who they are. And I just went to I've got a lot of connections now, thousands of people that are following or connected with me. So it's really easy to go in and sort by, who do I know in Newport Beach or Orange County? Who do I know in LA? Who do I know in New York? Who do I know in Austin? And I would just sit for an hour or two and go through the list. And anytime I saw someone that I would like to have a conversation with or like to invite to the lunch, I'd say, hey, I'm going to be in city on these dates, and I'm setting up a lunch to have a bunch of investors and financiers and executives to talk about the future of indie film. Can I send an invite? And a lot of them said yes, and then a lot of them showed up. So that's kind of the MO, the process. And I did, my goodness, how many did I say that I did? 7 meetups in 2 weeks. Like, I did 5 lunches and 2 meetups and a script preview for the movie that we're working on. Got a lot
Yeah.
of events in all of those days. I did attend some festival panels. I did see some movies, but that really wasn't the point.
So okay. So your goal for setting up these lunches is to, get face to face time with a group of people that's kind of a non pitch type environment.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
My buddy Dan Priestley, who's written a bunch of books, one called Oversubscribed and one called Key Person of Influence, that are both worth looking up. he's been talking a lot about this research, and he combined a couple of different points of research where Google and other like big companies had done research on consumer behavior. And they basically said that before a consumer buys something, they on average need 11 touches, meaning 11 interactions with a brand or a product
Yeah.
across 7 hours of time. That's a lot of time. 7 hours. And you're not going to get that very easily posting TikToks and posting short form content on LinkedIn. Like that's 30 seconds. That's a minute, maybe a couple of minutes at most with short form content. So how many times, how many posts do they have to look at in order to have 7 hours? And that's average. And so there's definitely people that'll convert after one ad or a 30-second ad or whatever, depending on where their demand currently is. But what I've found is if I could spend an hour with somebody before pitching them, the pitch goes very differently than if I just try to cold pitch somebody and hop on Zoom for 20 minutes.
Gotcha.
Because a Zoom for 20 minutes is a very cordial thing where they're accepting a request to hear a pitch and then very quickly say no. That's
Yeah.
kind of their context going in. Compare that to the context of we spent 2 hours together over lunch with a group of people that I invited. I invited them. I felt that like they were special enough to be at that lunch. So they already feel like, oh, Darren thinks really highly of me. I like this guy. He set up a cool event. We had a cool conversation. I had good food. There's 2 hours of context now where they really like me. And so at the end of that lunch, whether they do it in person on the way out as we're shaking hands and saying goodbye, or when I follow up with an email later that day or the next morning, the context is they're excited to talk to me about my
Yeah.
film fund because I did not pitch it during the lunch. I'll answer questions and talk about it in general terms, but I'm not giving a pitch. And so by the end, there's this tension of maybe two or three out of the 10 people at that lunch are like, I have to know more. And so we hop on a call and we have a longer conversation. So at that point, after a 2 hour lunch and a little bit of back and forth through email and a 30 to 60-minute phone call, now I've got 3 of those 7 hours with them.
Yeah.
And the context is excitement and tension and momentum towards, yes, I want to be a part of this, instead of let me figure out some way that I could, say no to this pitch. So that's why these lunches, this method uh, is the approach and why it works.
Yeah. And they are coming to the lunch anticipating and knowing, hey, we're going to go talk. That Darren views me as a potential investor in this fund.
Hmm.
Is that right? And then we're going to go
Yeah.
talk. And I liked that you mentioned that you're. I mean, how much is it costing you to buy lunches for everybody?
Oh, I'm not doing that.
Yeah, I love that.
No, and it's really easy to tell people like I'm hosting and everyone's covering their meal. And
Yeah, I
if they
love that. Just
ask,
right up front, super transparent.
yeah, if they ask, then I give them the joke line of, "Well, I'm raising money right now, not spending money right now." So, and to be fair, there were probably four people's one, two, three, four, five lunches that I did cover. There were two guys at one lunch that left early and didn't pay because I'm assuming they thought I was covering it, and that's fine. Like it was $40 or whatever. And then the other lunch, there were three people that came and they brought one check and everybody was like, "Oh, I gotta go, I gotta go." I was like, "I got this," like it wasn't a big deal. But for the other five, no, everybody covered their own meal, and I would explicitly say, "Oh, let's do separate checks," and I would tell the waiter, early on, like, "Hey, if we can split this up, that's great. I'll usually order one or two items for the table to share, just to be a generous host." But
Yeah,
you know,
that's
um,
okay.
yeah.
So do you? That's funny. They had those potential investors dine and dash you, man.
I'm not
Maybe they
holding
need
it
to be
against them. Let's
more
put it
transparent. Like, hey, everybody, click here to acknowledge that you're paying.
that way. Yeah.
That's fun. Well, okay, well, good. So it sounds like then, and as you've said before, the fortunes of the follow up. So after the lunch, you the next day you're having meetings or at least email exchanges, and yeah, they've invested time in you, so they're excited and anxious to hear more.
Yeah. And you,
That's
by
so
the end
valuable.
of 2 hours, you also know if they're the type of partner that you're interested in having, right? There's some people that you'll meet where you're just like, oh, that's not the right vibe for what I'm trying to do. And there were, I don't know that there were one or two of those, but there were definitely people that I'm like, oh, there's zero interest in investing in a film fund, but they were very interested in having a conversation about indie film because they're curious or because maybe they know people. And so they become more of a bridge or a connector to investors rather than being investors themselves, which is also
Yes.
nice. I had somebody from our lunch on Tuesday who emailed me, connecting emails to two people. And I was like, oh, great. He's not a film investor, but he's got people that are interested in this space. So here we go. And that's again a better way to connect with people, getting an introduction from someone they already trust than a cold email or a DM from me on LinkedIn. But yes, I strategically spaced the lunches apart by at least a day. So if I had a lunch on Sunday, then the next was on Tuesday, the next was on Thursday, the next was on Saturday, so that I had a day afterwards to follow up and take meetings. So sometimes right after the lunch, I would be like, "Hey, are you free tomorrow? I'd love to chat. I got, some time." They're like, "Yeah, email me in the morning or text me in the morning."
That's cool.
Just because they're in that mode. They want to follow up right away. They don't want you to take 2 weeks to remember to follow up with them, right? They're on they're on that. Anyway, that's also very smart. Don't just stack three in, day to day to day. Like have some time in between so you can follow up.
Yeah. Oh, good. Well, that's very cool. And then, so at the lunch, you're not pulling out like a uh, PowerPoint and going over the deck of your latest project or anything like that.
No, no, no. The only thing I have, and I'll show it on screen here, you probably can't see it, but these very simple business cards that say producer.fund on one side. On the back, I would write a question like, what's your favorite movie and why? Or what excites you about indie film right now? Or what opportunities are you seeing in your industry right now? And on this, there's a little money clip that I made back in January for that event that says Producer Fund One on it. So that's a nice leave behind for them to, who's going to throw away a money clip? They're going to use it or they're going to put it on their desk or something. And it's a nice, like, weighty business card. So if they're interested, they have a very easy way to go and see the materials and check out what it is that I'm working on. But no, it's a zero pitch environment. I will answer questions, but I intentionally never lead with, well, what I'm doing through Producer Fund One is that, like, no, no, no. I'm not
Yeah.
anywhere close to that end of the spectrum. I'm on the side of, I'm really only here to ask questions. I'm curious about what other people think. So just to spend an extra 30 seconds or so on that, the idea of, these were called salon-style investor lunches. And people didn't really probably know what that means. And so I explained it a little bit in the event, which is like, this is a conversation. It's a single conversation. It's not a meetup, and whoever you sit next to, you get to talk to, and good luck. Because I hate
When are you explaining this? On the invite or
on the
whenever they say it?
invite or in the invitation when I'm reaching out to them, because most of
Yeah.
the outreach was through LinkedIn. Some people that I had contact with, if I have their email or cell phone, I would text them or email them.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, in the invitation on Luma, I use luma.com for the invites, RSVPs and stuff like that. But it says in the description, like, this is a salon style lunch. We'll have a conversation about this. And so when I sit down and everybody's there, I go, all right, well, let me tell you about how this works. And I'm hosting, so I'm kind of taking charge, and I'm saying, I hate going to these lunches every month where there's a dozen people there and you only get to talk to two or three because that's who you're sat next to. But you
Yeah.
look down the table and they're having a great conversation and they seem like really cool, and but you don't get to know them at all. And I don't like that. And so I limited it to 10. 10 is the most that I had, and it was a good enough number. Like, you could still have a single conversation with 10 people. I think if you got to 12, there's too much distance, maybe too much noise to be able to hear. It's too big. So I had everywhere between 3 and 10 people show up to these lunches. Um, and you have a single conversation. So you give three of the people a question on the back of their card. You can't get through 10 questions. It's too many questions, but three is great. Start with the one that says, what's your favorite movie and why? Because that's a very easy, like, icebreaker, and people have good answers and they're short, like 30, 60-second answers. And you can get around a table of 10 people in a few minutes. with that question, and it sparks, oh, I kind of get who that person is. Oh, I kind of see what they're into. That's interesting. And they inform why. They say why it's their favorite movie. So maybe it's because of the lighting or the actors or the writing. And you can kind of get to know
Or
people that
where
way.
they saw it or who they saw it with.
Yeah. The thing I heard a lot was kind of pivotal or transformational movies, like stuff people watched at a very specific point in their life, where before their life it was this way, and after they saw that movie, it was a different way. It changed them, in
Yeah.
their 20s or in their teens or wherever it was where they saw it. And mine's the same way. 2007, I watched Hot Fuzz, which is my favorite movie. It's right behind me in the video here. It's on the posters right behind my head. And, before 2007, I never thought about being in film. And 2007, it was like, oh, I think started with post production sound and then writing and then producing. But that's what pivoted my career to thinking about being in film. So, anyway, being able to have a single conversation. So you have someone read a question and every single person answers that first question. Then you go to the next question and every single person answers that one, and you don't have side conversations and stuff like that. Everybody's really focused on whoever's speaking, and you get to know 10 people in 2 hours.
It's cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, and then so did you do you feel like after those 14 days on the road or doing those 7 different times, come home and you feel like that was the goal reached, or are there things that you would do differently?
So the first thing
Or
I would
both?
do differently is, yeah, both. The first thing I would do differently is not wait for a festival to do it, because
Really?
probably 85-90% of the people I reached out to just lived in the city that I was in. They were,
They weren't necessarily there for the festival.
right, right. And
Gotcha.
as much as I kind of broadcasted to my audience through email and LinkedIn that I was going to be in these cities and reach out and let me know, there were a few people that did that. I set up a little, form that people could say what festival they're going to be at and stuff like that. It was like 6 people, and none of them ended up coming to the lunches. And so it was like,
Yeah.
um,
That is, I mean, that's very par for the course for festivals, right? Because the schedules are always so,
yeah,
um,
yeah.
d varied.
One, and I didn't even invite most of them because they were actors or directors, and it was like, well, that's not. I set up a meetup in Austin because of that, because I had a lot of people going, oh, I live in Austin, or oh, I'm going to be at the Austin Film Festival. That was one where people were going to be there and were on my list or connected to me and said, oh, I'd love to meet up. And so I said, well, I got a dozen people who want to connect, but they're not investors. So I just put a little meetup together at a little taco stand in downtown Austin, and we all ate tacos and had a good chat. But it wasn't an investor lunch. So you got to be judicious about it, because if you say it's an investor lunch and then you've got actors and screenwriters and directors and filmmakers coming, the one or two investors that show are going to be like, oh shoot, I thought
All
this
you're gonna
was
get is pitches, yeah.
yeah, I thought this was an investor lunch. So you have to kind of, that's why you set up an RSVP link and you make it by approval only, and no one can just like sign themselves up. Yeah, you got to do all that. So yeah, step one is I won't wait for festivals anymore. I'm just gonna say, look, I want to go to New York and meet with these 8 people that I've connected with over the last month, and I'm gonna start doing lunches in Utah for the same reason, because I'm connecting with dozens of people every month that are, potential investors in film. Why not engage them? I could just drive 20 minutes and go to Lehigh and we could have pizza together, whatever it is.
Yeah,
So probably going to start doing a lot more monthly lunches here, and probably at least every other month going somewhere. And New York and LA were probably the two most effective as far as meeting the right people and having conversations that are leading to more conversations. So,
yeah.
a lot more trips to those two cities over the next year.
It sounds amazing, Darren. It
It's fun,
sounds
man.
great, man.
It's fun.
I'm so glad you were able to do that and that it went well, and it looks like it'll be incorporated into your plan from, going forward.
Yeah. Um, I don't think we even got to the main topic yet, though.
Oh, uh-oh. Well, let's get to it then. I thought that that's what you
I
were
know.
talking about, kind of the breakdown.
I think we could do this in 10 minutes, though, which is it's an important one for the audience. But I do appreciate you letting me kind of steal the platform for a few minutes to talk about these lunches because, like you said, I've written about it and I want more people to have strategies that actually work when trying to connect with people. Here's the main topic, and let's tee this up. And I'm really curious. So I want to start with your thoughts on this. This imbalance of supply and demand. Supply and demand imbalance is what we'll call it. So there is too much supply for the demand that exists in the marketplace, and that's where people get frustrated. So there are too many scripts, there are too many directors with projects that need funding, and there are too few investors and distributors. Right? That's the imbalance. If there was a distributor for every single person that had an idea for a movie and a desire to make it, we'd have a million movies a week coming out, right? And that we already have an oversupply of content in my mind. That doesn't mean there's um, only bad content that's coming out, but we have an oversupply compared to the days where it was only a handful of studios that were releasing movies and only a handful of networks that were putting shows on TV. We're in a very different era. We have, streamers that are putting out content every single week. And I use that term intentionally. So not necessarily movies or shows, but content every single week. And you've got hundreds of channels and dozens of distributors that are putting movies into theaters every year. So what do you do when you have a project that's not getting financed? And I had so many conversations with filmmakers who have had a passion project that they've been trying to get made for years. And I'm contrasting that with the pace of the project that I'm currently slating first in the producer fund one that had a preview on a Friday, got the producer, me, on a Monday, and got the first $1 million in committed on the next Friday. So within a week. And that was all within 5 weeks of starting writing the project. So that's kind of unheard of. So I don't want to say that everybody should be working toward that. What I'm saying is if you think of the demand that already exists in the marketplace and you write to meet that demand, it's a lot easier. And the potential of finding collaborators and the resources you need tends to come a lot faster. So curious your thoughts on that. And maybe we broaden it out to the idea of, do you write what you're passionate about, or do you write what can sell? And those are two ends of the spectrum. And I'm curious where you land and how you think of that supply and demand tension.
Well, I think you're right. I mean, I think that there is an abundance of content and stories. I mean, you go to YouTube, and I just did a quick search, and there are 30,000 hours per hour, or 1,250 days worth of videos every hour. That's around 82 years of content each day. That's just uploaded to YouTube. So, granted, those aren't all feature films, but we can tell you, it would certainly support your statement
Yeah.
of there's more content than watchable hours
Yeah.
or demand for it, right?
Yeah.
Um,
Even if we had the demand for 1,250 years or whatever days of content, there you can't actually satisfy that demand as an individual. Maybe you could do a couple hours a day.
well, and it's interesting because it really, I mean, we can get into that whole topic on a separate conversation, separate episode, but it sets a precedence of like, oh, what am I? What is my responsibility as a viewer, as a consumer of media and content?
Mm,
And it's like, oh man, there's some like real personal habits that should be. I think we have to be responsible viewers,
yeah.
honestly.
Time for an
Uh,
audit. Yeah.
so yeah, that's a whole nother topic. So yes, there as a filmmaker, I'm very aware that there is an abundance of content out there, and honestly, abundance of distributors. And the independent film market, based on my conversations with multiple distributors over these past 2 weeks, the market is changing, and nobody knows what we're doing, and not what we're doing. Nobody else knows what they're doing. Each distributor I spoke with certainly knows what they're doing. The irony is they're all doing the same thing, uh, but their competition is all doing it wrong, according to them. Um, so I guess I have to be careful not to sound um, ungrateful for a distributor. But where I'm going with that, in one conversation, Darren, the distributor said, we have 50 channels that we need to get content for. and we can put your film on all 50 of our channels. And I was like, great. Except for they want all the rights to the film. I'm like, okay, you guys have 50 channels. That's probably enough. But anyway, I'm not sure if I'm giving you a response to your question.
Well, as a writer, director, producer, are you thinking more about write what you're passionate about or write what can sell? Because you're tapped into the marketplace. You went to NRB earlier this year. You went to the
I
IVCM,
I
whatever
guess,
that one was.
yeah, ICVM. I would answer your question by asking you the same question that's on the back of your business card. What's your favorite movie that you've seen? What's a good movie you've seen recently?
Hmm.
Right? And if that conversation goes to, oh, I sat down, let a movie wash over me that I didn't even want to see. That movie won't ever happen. Like that won't ever be the answer. It will be I actively sought out and saw this particular movie because I can tell you the writer director was passionate about it. Yeah. So I guess another answer is yes. I think it's vital to write what you're passionate about. Now, the role of a filmmaker, if you're doing this as a business, you will pitch and pitch and pitch whatever you're passionate about until you figure out how to make that sellable and how to make that in a
Yes.
market.
Yes. I think you kind of nailed it, which is you can write what you're passionate about as long as it matches the demand that exists in the marketplace. If the goal is to make it, if it's, the goal is to make it something that gets into theaters, gets picked up by a distributor, they have a demand. Like Lionsgate wants to put out 12 movies a year. They have a demand for 12 movies a year, and they would ideally have the movies that are coming from the biggest actors, the biggest directors, the biggest writers, right? Because they're a mini major. They're not Universal, Disney, Paramount, Warner Brothers. They're just slightly smaller than, right? So their demand is for the best movies around, movies that can make $50 million in the box office plus. Okay, well, if you're not writing that, or if you aren't a writer, actor, director, production company that has done that, then they don't have demand from you right now. So the answer isn't how do I turn this project right now today into that. The question is how do I use the project that I have today to get me one step closer to that over time. And so I'm thinking about this a lot with the distributors because, yes, I'd love to have an output deal with Universal like Blumhouse does. That'd be an amazing outcome. Every movie that I make, I deliver to them. They give me more money than I made for it, and we split the profits forever. Absolutely. Like, yes, please. If you're listening to this, guys, I'm open. My cell number is right. So that's what I'm working toward. I'm not there yet. I even asked my law firm the other day. I was like, this is what I'm working toward. How close am I? And they're like, you probably are one or two movies away. Like if you through the fund have not necessarily breakout hits that every single person is talking about and makes $100 million, but if you spend $1 million and make five, you can have a conversation with Lionsgate, Focus Features, Sony Affirm about an output deal. It's probably not going to be offered, but you can start the conversation. Great. I'm on track. Let's go. Like that's what I'm working toward. I'm giving myself 10 tries through this fund. Maybe it
Yeah,
takes one or two.
yeah,
So you go with what you have, but you're strategic about where you're going and you let the outcome inform the strategy. And so, yes, passion is important. You need to care about the content, about the movies, the films, the projects that you're working on. But if it's disconnected from the demand that's in the marketplace, you're doing yourself and all your collaborators a real disservice by being really passionate about something that doesn't have any demand for it. And if there's no demand, there's no sale, there's no partnership, there's no collaboration, there's no investment. So it's a big idea that I think even hours on a podcast talking about is not going to help people. It's really about going out and testing the demand for what you have. And I spent a year and a half testing the demand for Producer Fund One before I announced it because I
mm,
didn't want to enter the marketplace with something that nobody wanted. And I still think I entered the marketplace with an offer that not enough people wanted, which is why it's taking me so long to raise the money.
Mm.
But think about it on this path of where I'm headed. By fund number 2, if we have a couple movies that 3, 5, 10x their investors' money, and we're now talking to bigger distributors, how hard is it going to be to raise fund number 2 at an even 2 or 5 times bigger amount? It's not going to be as hard because there's going to be more demand for what I'm doing. The demand isn't there yet, at least not in large enough numbers where I can just send out an email and say I'm raising 10 million, get in line.
Yeah.
But that's what we're building towards. So I don't know. It's a big idea for people, and something I just came across a lot when I was standing in line or sitting next to people at film festivals going, well, tell me what you do. And they're like, oh, I'm a director. I've got this project I've spent, and I ask them, well, how long have you been working on that? 4 years, 6 years, 8 years. Like that
Yeah.
was the average. It wasn't, oh, this is the current project and I've got 3 or 4 in development. It was one project that they're hyper focused on. And I try to like even hide that I'm a producer because I don't want to have the conversation of like, oh, you're a producer, well, let me pitch you. I'm like, I don't want to be pitched, I want to watch a movie. Like I'm at the end of my day, I want to relax. Maybe that's rude of me, I don't know, but it was just like, okay, you could feel the need and the desperation of like, I just need somebody to give me a chance, and this is going to be the biggest bestest movie ever. And it's like, I don't think it is. I don't think that's how it works. So trying to share this idea to help more people kind of take a different approach, I guess.
Yeah, it's definitely worth thinking about, and I think if we can figure out how to bridge those two, the artist's passion with the audience's demand,
Yeah.
then I think then that's when you can make your second movie.
Well, and here's a question for you because you've done, these two conventions. You went to ICVM and you went to NRB this year, and you had a piece of paper that showed like what, 5 or 6 projects on it. When you're putting that in front of people, did you get any clarity around which 1 or 2 projects were most interesting to people, or was it just kind of everyone had different demand?
Well, I think that let's see, how can I answer that? Based on kind of what we've my approach wasn't to go through the project by project by
Mm,
project, say, what do you want? What do you want? And I don't think that that's the format
right,
that the ICVM or any sort of pitch meeting is that and say, this is a takeaway, and I'm not sure what this is. I wanted to create the demand to work with me. Like, hey, we're working on several projects. We've got things in the pipeline and a fund behind it, and I'd love to, go to lunch sometime, or
yeah,
like you say, we want to spend more time with them.
yeah,
Um, but and I guess I can on this sheet, where I do have 6 projects. There are certainly projects on that on there that I'm more passionate about than others, but there certainly aren't any on there that I would dread making. If somebody said,
right.
"Oh, the audience, there's such a demand for this movie," and I just have to go, "Oh, now I got to make that movie." No, yeah. So I think there does have to be both.
Yeah, I agree. And what you did do was exactly what we're talking about here, which is you went out and met a lot of people and found where the demand was, right? If there's channels that are like, oh, thanks for stopping by, but that's not really what we're looking for, you just go to the next one, right? And you put yourself in a place where people were, hundreds of vendors, hundreds of channels, hundreds of distributors at NRB that are setting up booths saying, we have demand, come talk to us. That's
Yeah,
literally the context for that event. And then you're able to say, look, I'm one of thousands of people that are here, and here's what I'm offering. And you're testing that tension. You're testing to see if there's resonance there. And you came back with dozens of people that you had follow-ups with. So I think we're living this principle. But it pains me to see people that are struggling. And so I share these thoughts in the hope of having less struggle out there in the industry
yeah.
where there's a lot of struggle right now.
Well, yeah. It is a struggle. It's a crazy business. I can tell you unanimously what there is demand for, and that's
Mm,
finished projects that you have the rights to. And so, again, as a filmmaker, I would recommend, in fact, well, we can get into this uh, question and answer thing on a separate topic, but the conversations would end really quickly if you said, "Oh, I don't have the rights. I've got this movie I've made, and if you don't know, like, oh yes, I have North America streaming available," then that's a start.
Yeah.
But you have to lead the conversation and say, "Tell me what rights you're looking for, or tell me what markets your channel serves." Because they do not say, "Yeah, take all the rights," and then they put it on their channel, and that's it, and it blocks everything else from being.
Yeah.
If they want exclusive or anything like that, then that's an easy conversation to say, "Oh, at this point, these titles are not available for exclusivity, but if you want to develop something with me, I'm more than happy to talk about that."
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think that's honestly maybe worth another conversation. But whenever you give those rights away, you just put the ceiling in place for how high
Yeah,
you can go. And if you end up a year later having a conversation with a bigger distributor who's like, well, we won't take it unless we can do all rights, or, oh, you already did the theatrical, well, we only do it if we can do theatrical and the whole downstream, you missed out because you gave the rights away too early. So smart. We should definitely dive into that deeper on another episode.
okay. Darren, this has been very informative, and hopefully, if you're listening or watching, you're able to pull out some nuggets. If any, just make sure you invite people to lunch and get together for lunch and have good conversation.
Yeah. Amazing. All right, man. Good to see you. Good to be home. We'll chat again next week.
Okay, thanks, Darren.
See ya.
This season of Truly Independent is supported by the Help Them See Foundation. Help Them See is a nonprofit dedicated to supporting feature films that inspire faith, hope, and connection. By partnering with filmmakers, the Help Them See Foundation brings meaningful stories to life and shares them with audiences worldwide, making a lasting cultural impact through the power of cinema. Learn more and discover how you can be part of the movement by visiting helpthemseefoundation.org. Thanks for joining us. If you are enjoying Truly Independent, please share and subscribe so you don't miss the rest of the journey. Today's episode was edited by Michael Bradford and produced by 3 Coin Productions.